Today I wanted to talk about storytellers. With all the AI and all the new things that are coming up, you kind of wonder, is there still going to be a place for us for real human storytellers? And I just really wanted, I guess, to share my thoughts today about that, and maybe to encourage people who are worried about the future of storytelling. That I think we're okay. I think we're going to be okay because I think there's still going to be always a need for real storytellers. So let's talk about that today.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Amante. I'm a women's fiction author, and usually I'm here on Fridays to give you some writing tips. But again, today I think I'm just going to talk about storytelling and encourage you to tell your story in the new year as we look at the evolution of books and publishing. So one thing I guess to keep in mind is that things are always evolving, right? We're always moving on to something hopefully newer and better. So when I think back, right, when I first started and even before that with publishing, there were tons of publishers. There were a lot of big publishers all kind of competing in the marketplace, which was good for authors because it gave us a lot of places to place our books. There were large and medium-sized publishers. I remember going and buying this big giant book that looked like a giant dictionary called the Writer's Marketplace. And in that Writer's Marketplace, you could find all these various different publishers and agents and all these publishing people, right, in the industry, so that you can start sending your manuscripts. So whether you were writing articles or books or nonfiction, fiction, you could find everything here in this book. But the truth was that it was a publisher's game back then, right? So if you were a writer, you needed to be able to sell your product, right, your book, your article, to these publishers. And if you couldn't do that, you would not get published. So yes, there were a lot of different publishers. There was a lot of opportunity as far as that, because there were a lot of magazines that you could sell to, but it also limited us because there was no way for us to do it ourselves. So gradually, with the birth of the internet and self-publishing tools and Amazon and KDP and all these things that came up, it gave us an opportunity now to actually publish our own work and to not rely on having a publisher buy what we're writing. So it was a positive change in many ways. We did not have to have an agent. We didn't have to write those horrible query letters, right? We could just self-publish if we wanted to. And so that's what a lot of people chose to do. So some people stayed with traditional publishing. Some people decided, well, no, I'm not going to go that route. I'm just going to self-publish. But that has created some challenges too, because what has happened is now there is such an enormous amount of material out there, so many books, so many things, that it's hard for readers to actually find, right, to weed through all of this and to actually find you, right, to find your story. So even though before the publishers that were out there, there were a lot of them, but it was limited in a way. You couldn't, they would only publish so many books a year. And so there was only so much out there. So if you did get published, you had a better chance of getting noticed. You had a better chance of readers finding you, and a better chance of publishers actually helping you to grow within their publishing company. So that went away now when everybody is self-publishing. There's so many books out there. In fact, I'd read Pew Research from the Pew Research Center that about 64% of adults reported reading a book in the past year, right, in the past 12 months. And about 17% of those were 18 to 24-year-olds. So because they actually prefer to listen to audiobooks than to read. So in a way, that's kind of discouraging. So 64% sounds good, but if only 17% of those are younger people, I don't know what that means for us as writers in the future. Are people reading less? Are people viewing videos more? Are people listening to audiobooks more, right? So things again are going to be changing with future generations. We're not sure really where they're going and what they're thinking as far as reading and books. I know that my own children tend to not read at all, which kills me, right? As a writer, how can they not like books? My house is filled with books, and yet most of the time they choose not to read. However, they do other things, right? So my daughter loves games, for example, and the games are very complex. There's storytellers that are needed for that to create these amazing worlds and characters within these games. And again, they're very complex. They're not just simple games the way when I grew up, right? The Pac-Mans of my generation. No, these are intense stories, and all kinds of things happen to the character depending on what the choices that the character makes. So it seems to me that storytelling is still here, that we still have it. It's just that maybe the medium or the way that we're going to be delivering the stories might end up changing, might be a little different than what we're used to, especially my generation is used to. The good thing for us, and the positive thing that we need to, I guess, take away from this, or take away from this thought process that I'm having here, is that storytelling is important, and it's not going anywhere. The world still needs us. They still need storytellers, and it's existed from the beginning of time. That hasn't changed, right? So we used to have stories from written on cave walls. We had the oral tradition of telling stories. So it's just a human need, I think, to hear stories and to understand the world through storytelling. So there is definitely a need for storytelling. Storytellers are not going anywhere. Humans love stories. It's actually if you look at it from a scientific point of view, storytelling makes us feel good. And so it actually releases like the, what is it, oxytocin, I think it is, hormone that makes us feel good, right? So we love storytelling. We love story. We actually understand our world better through stories. Another great thing I think about storytelling is that it helps us build a sense of community. So through stories, through books, through movies, through video games, however we want to think about storytelling, it helps us to understand each other more and understand what love means and understand what hate is, right? It helps us to understand each other better. And through stories, it becomes engraved in our mind more than if somebody just told us something. We can relate more to each other through stories because we can relate to the character that is going through a certain thing, right? So if a character is falling in love, falling out of love, we can understand what that means because we can relate to how that character is feeling. And so it helps us understand each other and helps build that sense of community. Stories also help us to understand the past and to envision the future. So by reading stories about the past, things that have happened, we kind of understand, right, how we've gotten to where we are today, right, by things that have happened in the past, things that people have experienced, and also it helps us to envision the future. If this is what things have happened in the past, what can we possibly expect in the future? So again, storytelling helps us to do that. It helps us to understand each other. So basically, if you love life, you have to love stories, right? Because stories are about life. So how do we prepare then for the next evolution of storytelling in books? It's kind of hard, right? This is one of the things that I was thinking. And as a college professor too, that I'm kind of facing AI written stories and essays that students are turning in. I've been thinking a lot about this topic, which is probably why I decided to talk about it. But so it's going to affect me as a college professor, but it's also going to affect me as a writer. But how much is it going to affect me? Who knows? I've heard all kinds of things, right? That, AI is going to be taking over writing our books. They're basically just going to be copying other books that have been written, rewriting them. And they do it in an amazing way, right? Because they learn what's out there and then they can actually create their own book. But I think that at least for now, it's not where there isn't really a fear that they can actually write because stories are about the human experience, and if you're not a human, you're not really writing. There's no emotion, there's no feeling in a story. I've seen very well written AI like information type things, but I haven't seen anything. Personally, I haven't seen anything written, any fiction written by AI that is good. So I think that, and I've heard people say, well, the human written stories are going to be more valuable because they are human written, but the mass produced books are going to be AI. Who knows, right? Who knows? All I know is that I don't think that a computer can really reproduce a real experience because they're not experiencing anything. All they're doing is copying things that other people have experienced and trying to write a story with that. So I think as we keep evolving and publishing keeps changing, I think we kind of have to go with it. Like, how can we actually use AI to improve our own skills? How can we actually use it to improve storytelling? And I don't mean using AI to actually write for us. I mean, I don't even honestly see the point of that. Like, well, if you really want to be a writer, why would you want to write something that? Why would you want somebody else to write it for you? So you either want to be a writer or you don't. And if you want to be a writer, the great part about being a writer is learning how to be better, and we might be able to use it. I did not like what's it called, Grammarly at all. Didn't want my students using it. I didn't use it. Um, and then I thought, well, let me try it because it's there. And then once I did, I realized, well, okay, it's helpful. It's very helpful. But and it does make my writing better in certain ways. But then in other ways, it's like, no, I have to tell Grammarly no all the time. Yes, I really did mean to write myself. I really did mean to write this. It has certain words it doesn't like, and it says it's not, it's not good writing. Well, with fiction, it's different, right? So you might really want a word in there that typically for a professional business letter you would not want. So you have to still be the writer. You still have to say, no, I'm not changing that word, or I'm actually going to punctuate this incorrectly because I want to emphasize certain things, and that's okay. So you can learn from it and you can become a better writer, and but you have to understand, right? You have to understand what you're writing, your own writing. You have to understand good writing versus bad writing in order to accept what AI is trying to help you with, right? So I think there is not anything to fear, and I think that the next evolution of writing, I think that we are going to be moving away from traditional publishing more than people think. And again, I have no idea. I'm only basing this on just looking at what's going on. Most people are actually moving away from like network TV. They're all going to subscription based type of streaming. If you love football, you're going to stream the football channel. If you love romance movies, you're going to be part of the Hallmark, whatever, right? Channel. So people are really choosing what they like. And I think it's going to be the same thing for publishing. And I'm already seeing that. I'm already seeing that traditional publishers are publishing like the bestsellers, the people that are have been writing for many years, where the newer writers are doing a lot more self-publishing and growing their own brand, and becoming their own brand, and not really needing the publishers. And not that it's easy at all. It's very hard. Like I said, there's so many books out there to actually be noticed. But I think that people that are good writers, good human writers, and also good at reaching readers and know who their readers are probably going to be the ones that do well in the future. So it's really interesting. I have no idea how things are going to turn out, but I'm very interested in seeing and following the publishing world and seeing what happens next, how it evolves. Maybe we're going more towards audio type books than actually written books. Maybe we're going towards more in reader involved books, like video games, right? So video games, that's what they are, is the reader is actually involved in deciding how the story progresses. So We don't know, but again, it's very interesting. So I've heard scary, but I think it's more interesting than scary, and I think that we have a really good, interesting future ahead as far as writing. So we'll see where how things change in 2024 and where things go. But I'm excited and I'm ready to be part of it all. I hope you are too. So I hope you kind of enjoyed this conversation. You can give me your point of view because I sure would love to have a conversation about this and where everybody else sees publishing going and where you see yourself in the future of publishing. So leave comments, let me know what you think, and I will see you again next week with another topic. So have a great week, and I'll see you then.